It's my pleasure to introduce Keerti Melkote, founder and president of Aruba Network. Keerti met with our customers in our suite in 2019 in Las Vegas and gave an importance. And given the importance of networking, we are thrilled that he is joining us again today. A reliable, secure, easily managed, unified network that also works from a home is top of mind for most of our businesses today. So Keerti's insights are timely and invaluable. Keerti is an industry legend. He's the kind of guy who drives the change, not the guy who waits for someone else to do it. After earning his bachelor's degree from a top engineering school in India, he received his master's in electrical engineering from Purdue. After school, he moved to Silicon Valley, and he spent the following decade working at numerous roles at companies like Cisco and Intel. In 2002, he co-founded Aruba Networks. And in just 5 years, Aruba was transforming office networks into mobile-ready ones. Aruba went public in 2007, and in 2015, HPE acquired Aruba. Keerti today helps other startups as an advisor and angel investor. Aruba is recognized by Gartner and others as an innovation leader. A big part of Aruba's success comes from listening carefully to customers, called customer first, customer last. Aruba today is innovation across edge to cloud, to core, to branch, to home. The latest is Aruba's ESP, the industry's first AI-powered, cloud-native, all-in-one unified infrastructure for campus, data center, branch, and remote worker locations that predicts and resolves problems before they happen. Keerti will answer questions, so please send them in using the Q&A box. Keerti, we really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your thoughts and insights with Comport's customers. Welcome back.
The next big shift is here. Users, devices, things creating more data at the edge. Current networks bound by human capacity. How can you keep pace? Realize the power of data with a self-healing, self-optimizing, predictive, liberate your people network. Introducing the industry's first AI-powered platform with a sixth sense, so your network can see and fix problems before they happen. Does your network have a sixth sense? Now it can. arubanetworks.com/ArubaESP.
Thank you, Jack, for the introduction. I'm glad to be back with all of your customers. It's a pleasure to reconnect with all of you. The topic for today, as Jack introduced, is our new announcement that we made a couple of weeks ago around the edge and the introduction of the Edge Services platform. And so I want to take a few minutes this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're hearing from, walking you through the thoughts behind ESP and the opportunities that it unlocks for all of us. And then, of course, we'll take some Q&A at the end. So let me first start out with a little bit of a retrospective of architectures in general in the tech industry. And here's just, I won't take you back and discuss this in detail, but I think many of you know the entire IT era started with mainframes, and it was basically a centralized data room where computing was basically limited to. And it was the elite few that got to use the mainframes and use it for business productivity and so on. Then, of course, came the client-server era, which really democratized computing out of the data room into our desktops, basically. And computing became distributed, right? We went away from, we kept the data centers, but we started to add a lot more compute at the edge in the client-server era. And then, of course, as I said, the computing grew out of the data room to our desks, basically, in the workplace. After that came the mobile cloud era, the last 10, 15 years of the computing trends. And here again, it's further democratization of computing to our hands with our smartphones. We can take computing pretty much wherever we go. And from an applications perspective, they get even further distributed in the sense that they go not only from an enterprise footprint, but now they can deploy applications in the cloud. And that's sort of the era that we live in right now. And if you look at the mobile cloud era, it was born, I like to think of it as, crisis leads to opportunities. And the last crisis that we all kind of went through, economic crisis, was the global financial crisis of 2008, where mobility was still forming. The iPhone was just introduced, the Android phones were coming on, and AWS and the cloud was very, very early. People thought it was just a hobbyist kind of a technology. But if you yet look at it 12 years later, the mainstream has become mobile cloud. And that's sort of the lens through which I look at the next decade. Is yes, we are going through a crisis right now. It is a healthcare crisis manifested into an economic crisis. We will have to deal with the aftermath of this in the next 12, 18 months, like all of us do. And typically the first set of initiatives that are kicked off in most of our organizations is how do we actually save costs, because business is down, revenue is down. And so cost management becomes a number one priority almost immediately. But then it's not just about more of the same once we're out of the crisis. Most organizations, good organizations, look at this as an opportunity to reinvent themselves. And the way they do that is to take the time to really analyze what's coming in the future and see how they can use that to accelerate the business, as inevitably things do come back from a crisis. And for Aruba, this was 2008. Imagine wireless LAN was still early. We talked about network right sizing as a mechanism to save money. And I think that is going to be still very relevant as we come out of this crisis. But really, the big trend of the last decade was the trend of bring your own device, and where anybody could bring in any device into the network. And how do you ensure there's a mobile network in the office that allows you to compute and use it very freely like you do anywhere else, and do it in a secure manner. And that's the foundation on which we're built. But as we look to the future, the trend seems to be accelerating towards digital transformation. And Morgan Stanley calls this the data era. And yes, we have mobile, we have cloud, we have applications, we have data centers. All of that is a given from an infrastructure perspective. But the real value that is being unlocked is from the data. As we collect more and more data, and most of this data I'll discuss is going to be generated at the edge, where the business activity tends to be. How do you collect this? How do you mine this data to really give you the business insights that unlock greater value for you? And that's sort of the core of the next decade, is we see data will fundamentally change how businesses think of digital technology. And in a decade, I hazard to say that there will be hardly a business out there that will not be touched by technology and data and digital. If you're not going to be transformed through digital technology, then the likelihood that you will remain relevant as a business in a decade is going to be very low. And I think that is the current state of affairs. And there's really two core drivers of digital transformation. The first one is, how can I use all this technology, if you're in a customer-facing business, to really create new experiences, new revenue streams, innovate faster, to both differentiate yourselves and create more revenues for your organization. And on this other side, can I use this data? Can I make my business, for those of you who are operating on the back office side, operating assembly lines in factories, warehouses, and the like, how do I use more connected IoT technologies to drive greater efficiencies inside my business? And this could be process efficiencies, this could be productivity efficiencies, but ultimately the goal here is to drive more automation and lower the costs of operation and make it more real-time in nature. Those are the two significant use cases of the data that will be used. And to me, as I said, a lot of this is at the edge. And just to quickly define what the edge is, it's all the places that each one of us are familiar with. It is our workplaces, it's our homes now that we are using to connect into our work. It's stores, it could be warehouses, it could be factory floors, oil and gas drills, pretty much wherever real business activity occurs. And the opportunity then is, as this data gets generated at these locations, what is the framework through which we can analyze this data? And for a lot of you, the initial step at the edge tends to be, I first need to get things connected. Get people connected, get their devices connected, get the IoT devices that are coming into the enterprise connected. And connectivity usually is the first step. And these days, it's very difficult to talk about connectivity without also talking about how do we protect these connections. And so connect and protect becomes typically the first set of priorities for most organizations as a step towards unlocking the value in the data. But then if you just simply connect and protect, then all you did was create more data, but not the framework for actually creating, unlocking business value. So we're basically adding two new components to our architecture, which is analyze and act. How do you collect all this data, use it for analysis using machine learning, using artificial intelligence technologies that are available now. And then once you start to analyze the data is where the insights occur. Antonio calls this the age of insight. And to me, the real value of insight is taking action based on that. And these actions can be manual in terms of making changes to your business strategy, or they can be automated. If you're operating automated, systems in the back end, can I actually use the analysis and the insight to then tune my business systems, my logic, to operate better? And so connect, protect, analyze, and act tends to be the framework through which we want to develop technologies and solutions to really take you from that initial state of creating more data to ultimately unlocking the value from the data. Now, for Aruba, what this translated to was how do we enable the whole sequence of connect, protect, analyze, and act in an automated manner, in a simple manner. So you don't have to worry about hooking everything up manually and doing things very manually, but really making it a lot more easier to consume, if you will, in a cloud-like experience. That was the goal that we set for ourselves when we started this journey a few years ago, as we came together with HPE. And what I found was there was a lot of, even at the connectivity tier, this is a lot of disconnected components. There was Wi-Fi, there was obviously switching, and switching was disaggregated into access switching, which is different from the core and the aggregation switching that goes into campus locations or branch offices, and which was different from wide area connectivity, which was again different from how connectivity happens in a data center. Different products, different platforms. And I just felt that there was an opportunity to unify all of that. And that was sort of the first step that we embarked on, was to create a unified platform for managing all the connectivity fabrics that you have to utilize to bring all this data into the enterprise. So that was step number one. Step number two, as I said, you can't just simply have connectivity without actually protecting the connections. And here what we did was basically talk about what are the different aspects of protection. The first layer was how do we protect who gets in to this network environment, who is authorized to connect, what permissions do they have when they actually connect. And we call this access management, and many of you are familiar with ClearPass as our product that enables this. But then not just leave it at the front door and make sure you show your credentials before you jump onto the network, but when a device or when an IoT is on the network, the next step tends to be how do you monitor the behavior of these devices and things so that they don't violate any security policies. So continuous monitoring becomes the next step. And then, of course, use that continuous monitoring, and we're going to apply AI technologies to unlock insights, security insights out of this continuous monitoring of data that we get through these devices, connected devices. And then ensure that if we do find security breaches, that we enforce policies to lock these devices down so you protect your network and you protect these devices themselves. So that was the policy-driven framework that we're adding on top of a unified infrastructure fabric that connects all these devices together. And finally, I think the most exciting part of the story is really around services and intelligence. And here the idea is, as we now have protected and connected devices coming in and they're generating the data, even within the network, the goal was, as I said, there's two goals. One is to enable experiences that are better and superior, or drive business efficiencies. For both of those, we need to analyze how these devices are actually getting connected and are they delivering the right security, right experience. And so what we have built is a set of services capabilities on top that deliver on the promise of continuous monitoring and security, deliver on the promise of continuous monitoring for experiences, and ensure that those experiences are the best. For example, if you're experiencing this as a um, sorry, something seemed to have happened here on the slide deck. We will try to click you back to where we were. So in terms of services, going back to ensuring that there are AI operations to enable security, and then there is capabilities to monitor user experience and whether the users are getting the best experience. In this case, if you're getting a good experience of your video or audio feeds for real-time applications, or if you're imagine now at the edge you're in a retail store. The future could be augmented reality of data about what you're shopping for. That is a real-time experience that needs to come together, formed at the edge. And that will require a lot of processing to be done right there at the edge. So monitoring the user experience and delivering the right experience at the right time is the next set of priorities. And so we've built a set of technologies to enable generating the data and analyzing the data to optimize your user experience. And so the framework that we set out for the Edge Services platform was really 3 layers. Have a unified infrastructure that converges all the connectivity layers, so you can connect any device, anytime, any place. Do it in a secure manner with a zero trust security fabric, so you know who's on the network and what they're doing or what the device might be doing on the network. We call this the ability to do dynamic segmentation. And then finally, AI operations, which is really about that analyze and act component, giving you that continuous feed of what's going on in your environment, giving you the business value, tuning the environment to deliver the best experiences, and tuning the environment to give you the business outcomes that you're looking at. So that's sort of the preview of what ESP is. It's a cloud-native platform. You can consume this through Aruba Central, which is the console for ESP. And Aruba Central can be consumed from the cloud as a software as a service solution. We're also in the process of delivering Aruba Central as an on-prem solution. Many customers have said that they cannot quite embrace the cloud. And so we are making the software available to them on premises in their data centers. We can also deliver this as a managed service all in, including the hardware elements. And of course, we can combine this with GreenLake and HP Financial Services to deliver financing offers, which tend to be, in this day and age, quite important. So we are partnering very closely with the HP Financial Services teams to ensure that if there's a need to create a financing model for consuming ESP, we are able to do that. So very flexible in terms of how you want to consume ESP and deliver the business value that it brings to you. Now, let me bring it to the current age and the current time that we live in. The 2 specific areas I want to double click on as applications of the ESP platform. The first one, and this is a conversation that has come up a lot in the last few months, ever since we got into the shelter at home kind of mode, is around business continuity. Everybody is doing work at home, and most of the home environments were not really built for work. They were built for more recreational use. And so the question that came up was, can I actually create an experience for my employees as they work from home that is as though they are at the workplace? They're able to connect in, experience the same set of capabilities and technologies that they are used to when they're sitting at their desk in the work. And so we created this technology called Remote AP back in the day to serve this need. So you can actually create that work network inside a home environment. And with the ESP now, you have the opportunity to actually deploy these remote APs in pretty much any location that you might want, inside a home, inside a temporary healthcare facility that we are seeing a lot of needs for. We're also seeing, for example, the use of this technology in delivering distance learning, distance education, telemedicine, virtual call centers, all kinds of basically work at home type setups. And the idea is very simple. you take your Wi-Fi network that you're used to at your workplace, or any physical wired network port that you're used to provisioning at work, virtually extend that over the internet using this little remote AP. The AP will plug into your broadband modem at home. It will dial back to your enterprise connection. And if you don't have an enterprise VPN connection or don't have the opportunity to visit your data center, you can actually virtually instantiate a gateway inside AWS, which then hooks you up back into your cloud environments or inside your data center environments. And so that way you are able to basically extend the footprint of your workplace to pretty much any location in a very, very flexible manner. And the upshot is basically you get the security model that you're used to in your workplace extended to all these remote locations. That's the number one benefit of it. The number two benefit is visibility, which allows you to ensure that you're delivering a great experience for your employees as they work from home and remain productive, and do it in the same way that you do in a campus or a branch location or even in a data center. The other big use case for ESP that we are seeing a lot of interest in is business recovery. And here the idea is, we are going to reconstitute, come back to work. We are beginning to do that now in limited ways. And as we do that, how do we do that in a safe manner in a COVID world? And so the question that comes up quite often is, can I use location and location services that are built into the ESP platform as a way to ensure we are practicing good safety discipline when we are in the workplace? And so the answer is, of course, yes. There's a lot of location information that comes out of our access points and Bluetooth low energy devices and tags. And so the idea here is use that wireless data to be able to triangulate where a device or a thing is. And there's several use cases that come out of this. The first use case is simply space utilization. As you reconstitute and people come back into the workplace, what we are hearing customers ask for is, can I get a sense of real-time utilization of spaces in a way that allows me to deploy my cleaning crews to disinfect and clean conference rooms that were recently utilized, or collaboration areas that were recently utilized, or even desks that were utilized. That's one use case. The other use case that we're seeing is reconstituting the workplace itself into de-densifying it. So you have social distancing in the workplace, and the work desk itself becomes more of a hoteling space. There's no longer a dedicated cubicle with your name on it. You go in, you basically look up in real time what is available to you, pick a desk, use that for work, and as you vacate the desk, you deploy your cleaning crews to ensure that it's safe for use again. So density monitoring and ensuring that you're practicing good safety when in the workplace is one very important use case. The second one is, of course, use the location data through an app that allows you to create proximity alerting. And in a way that if you're getting too close for physical comfort in a workplace, then the app will actually alert you through a buzz or something that says, hey, please maintain social distancing. That's one thing. And all of this is, of course, in addition to typical things we do, like wearing PPE, masks, and so on, just to be safe inside the workplace environment. And finally, in the situation where a team member tests positive for COVID, then how do I ensure that there is the ability to trace the contacts in a secure manner that allows me to, and privacy friendly way, so that we can notify the people that were in close connection with this particular individual. So all types of different use cases relying on the use of location data inside the workplace. Another one I'll tell you is basically to be able to do this in a privacy manner. Many customers have said, I don't want to use the phone as a means to track the user. Is there another way to do it? Can I use my ID, my badge as a mechanism? And the answer is yes. We built these little asset tags to track equipment as they move through facilities in hospitals and the like. Typically, they would go on wheelchairs or other assets inside a workplace as the mobile assets. But these tags can very easily replicate themselves as something you can affix to an identity card. And so as you go about in a facility, we know where you are, but there's no personal data about you that is being transmitted at the same time. So there's various ways in which you can actually in a manner that is very privacy friendly and not exposing any personal information, personal data about any given individual. So I just wanted to highlight those two use cases, the work from home and location services, because they're highly relevant for both ensuring we are able to continue our work in a productive manner as we reconstitute. The edge is becoming wider and wider, extending to all homes now. And of course, when we do come into workplace, making sure we do that in a secure manner. So that's a couple of interesting use cases. I've been having many interesting conversations with many of you over the last 3-4 months, and I look forward to obviously having those, continuing those as we go through in the next few weeks and months. But at the moment, let me say thank you for participating in this. I'll open this up now for Q&A so we can have an interactive discussion. Thank you once more.
Keerti,
over to you.
Thank you very much. That was great. Great presentation, lots of information. A couple questions here. One of the questions that we have from the audience is about ESP. So does ESP only work with Aruba CX switches, or does it extend beyond the CX portfolio and or beyond the Aruba portfolio?
That's a great question, and let me answer in a twofold way. The ESP will work with CX switches as well as the traditional Aruba OS switch product lines, and so absolutely it is compatible with both our switching architectures. As far as third-party switches go, we are able to do the zero trust security on top of third-party switches using ClearPass. So you can actually use that to ensure access management, access permissions, and leverage things like ClearPass Device Insight for continuous monitoring. So zero trust is definitely a capability that you can implement on pretty much anybody's infrastructure, any switching infrastructure. We've tested with Cisco, we've tested with Juniper, Extreme, pretty much the large variety of switching solutions that are out there, including Arista as well. The AI ops capability of ESP, for security, again, we can deliver that, but the insights of user experience is something we can only do on the Aruba equipment, because we have built the Aruba infrastructure, the unified infrastructure, from the ground up with that in mind. So there's a lot of telemetry data coming out of the Aruba APs, Aruba switches, that are feeding the AI ops layer for user experience monitoring. So that is tied only to Aruba switches. But we also have these sensors now, CAPE sensors, or UXI sensors, that you can add to your infrastructure without disturbing your infrastructure and get a sense for user experience as an over-the-top service using ESP. So those are the two ways, ClearPass to get security insights and CAPE sensors to get user experience insight. For the location services, that is something you can layer on top of your existing network. You won't have to go wholesale replace everything. You can deploy the asset tags and the beacons on top of anybody's wireless and wired infrastructure and gain advantages of the location services as well. So yeah, it is a mixed model. Many of the capabilities are available to you in a third-party kind of situation, in a multi-vendor situation. A lot of the unique value obviously does come from the Aruba infrastructure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see some of the other questions we have here. The last few use cases that you laid out around contact tracing and asset tags and tracing people that way, is that a solution that's completely offered from Aruba and HPE, or are some of those partnerships that you've cultivated to utilize Aruba gear, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's different layers. You can just obviously consume the application as is and use it in your environments. Many customers are already using Meridian as a tool, so you can use that. But we also have a developer and a partner network, where if you have unique needs for your specific workplace, for the data, for consuming the data, for creating new application scenarios, then we have a set of partners, independent software vendors. Depending on where you are located, we can bring the right partner to you. It's an international set of partners that we can bring to bear and pair you up with the right people to ensure we meet your needs there.
Yeah, just on a personal note, just a plug for ourselves, you can also contact Comport. We have some of those solutions in-house that we can layer on top of Aruba.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Thank you, Eric, for bringing that up.
Okay, so one other thing, so Edge obviously is the new frontier in IT, and like any frontier, it's sort of like the wild, wild west. And customers, particularly customers that I've talked to, but a lot of questions that come in are around, how do I secure those devices? There's tons of data coming in from those devices. How do I deal with the volume of data? And then how do I make that data actionable? So how is Aruba helping customers deal with all those different layers of the technology? It's not just we connect APs at the edge or devices at the edge. I mean,
Yeah.
the real value is in the data that's provided by those and the connectivity that's provided by those devices.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as I said, right, the first step needs to be beyond connectivity, assuming you can connect the devices through your wired or wireless networks. The first step tends to be profiling the device itself, especially IoTs tend to not authenticate into the network. Users do. We have username passwords, two-factor authentication, etc. But IoT devices tend to just want to connect and ask for an IP address and do their thing. And so what you need to do is ensure that you let them connect, obviously, but you start profiling the device and identifying the device. So that's number one. ClearPass Device Insight as part of ESP is a tool that allows you to do that and identify the type of device that it is. And it is beyond identifying a rudimentary device as, it's an iPad, for example, right? But the use case of an iPad can be many. You can use an iPad as a personal device. You can use an iPad outside a conference room as a display device. You can use it as a kiosk device. So there's many different use cases for an iPad. So it's important to really understand what is the use for that particular iPad. And continuous monitoring actually gives you that. Once you do that, and it's not just iPads, it could be industrial control devices, it could be patient medical devices, it could be devices inside a hotel. So it really depends on the environment that you're in. So that's step number one, identify and profile. Once you profile, you then lock it down and you basically allow it to access only the applications that it is supposed to access and not the entire network. So that is called segmentation. Dynamic segmentation is something we do. We don't do it with VLANs. We do it by dynamically creating tunnels over the underlayer fabric. And you do that in a very flexible way. Step number three, once you do segmentation, is enforcing the policies and ensuring that there's a firewall there that is looking at every session that is coming in and going out of this particular device to ensure that it's not trying to do the wrong things. And then, of course, there's a remediation step, which is if it does do the wrong things, then you have the ability to quarantine the device, clean it up, ensure there's no malware on it before you let it back onto the network. That's as far as the device goes inside a network. Now, this edge, think of it as I said, it's a site, a physical site. The site itself is going to be connected to the cloud, and usually it's connected over the internet. And so you need to have at the edge a firewall layer that protects you from threats coming from the internet. Typically, firewalls do that. And so what we've done is built that capability right into ESP. So you get firewalling, you get anti-malware, unified threat management right at the edge, protecting you from threats on the internet, but also do it with AI in mind. So you're collecting data and ensuring that there's no risks attendant to that site level security itself. So that's the way in which you actually protect the devices that are connecting and protect the site itself. And then, of course, ultimately, it's application security that lives in the data center or in the cloud. So it's usually we recommend a defense in depth strategy. We're protecting the device, protecting the site, and protecting the application kind of all together.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Let's see. So as far as 5G is concerned, it's coming into the mainstream now. How do you see 5G's role in connectivity? And do you see it as being a competing technology with things like Wi-Fi 6, or do you see it as being complementary technology?
Yeah, I see it as complementary. Wi-Fi and cellular technologies have always gone sort of juxtaposed with each other over the several generations. When 3G came out, we had 11N. When LTE came out, we had Wi-Fi 5 technologies, 11AC, Wave 1 and Wave 2. And as 5G is coming out, we're going to pair that with Wi-Fi 6. And typically the way to think about it is 5G obviously is going to be deployed on the cell towers. You're going to get a lot more capacity over the air and a lot more controls as well. So there's a lot of new use cases coming out of those cell towers, especially with things like self-driving cars and other types of automations. But as soon as you transition inside to a facility where you don't necessarily have cell coverage, typically indoor locations, I think you can resonate that there's not enough connectivity, enough coverage in those locations, and Wi-Fi has been the mainstay there. So I see these two sort of playing off of each other even as 5G comes along. And I think the next set of applications are really going to be around real-time controls, augmented reality, virtual reality, driving up more bandwidth, but also lower latency type solutions and applications. And that's really the heart of the edge, is there's going to be a whole new era of applications and driven by the need for low latency computing and low latency and high bandwidth computing. So that's why I see those two kind of going together for a long time.
Okay. Thank you very much. One last fun question, I guess. Somebody was asking, how did you come up with the name Aruba? Did somebody go on vacation there and decide to use that as the name of the APs, or how did that work?
Good question. I've always sold to IT. My customers have been in IT, and what I find is they're always in a hurry. They're always troubleshooting a problem here or there. Their hair is on fire. And as I started Aruba, I just wanted to make sure that it conjured up an idea, a place that you would go for peace, and that we would be here to take care of you. So every time you think of Aruba, you think of a pleasurable, nice place to go. And so that was the name. I haven't been to Aruba myself, although it is on my bucket list to do one of these days.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to throw it back over to Jack. Keerti, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.